Hello beautiful friends, I'm here today to share a new project with you for the Cut to You design team. I have done something like this before, but if you haven't seen my previous videos, I just wanted to let you know about a product that is offered in the Cut to You store, and these are called Kit to You products, and this is a layout that I've made using the Kit to You product. If you're not familiar with it, when you purchase it through the store, which I will leave a link for in the description box below, not only do you get the cut file, and in this case it's this gorgeous segmented circle cut file, but you also get a really detailed set of instructions and information about the supplies and a product list. And Gwen, who runs the Cut to You store, has already done all of the decision making for you, and she's created a layout and then provided you with a complete set of instructions for how to replicate that. Now she includes instructions on how to create the layout using the same products that she has, or she also includes instructions for if you want to do a little bit of stash busting, which is kind of what I've done here. So this was my set of instructions, and this was the layout that I created using the Crepe Paper Magical Forest collection. This product I feel is fantastic for when you are feeling like you want to create something, but maybe for whatever reason you don't have a lot of time available, or you're just not really feeling like making a lot of those decisions. So because everything is done, everything is decided, all you have to do is pick your products and get stuck into playing. So as I said, I will leave a link to this section of the Cut to You store in my description box below. You can check out all the designs and all the options that are available there. But what I'm actually doing today is I'm going to use this same cut file, but in a different way and for a very different looking layout. I am creating a boy layout, this photo of my son with a huge ice pack on his head after he suffered one of many great big bumps to his head. And with my silhouette, I have resized that cut file, so you should be, hopefully you can see here, I've sized it down quite small, and I've cut 4 copies of it from black cardstock. And I have also chosen some papers from the Cocoa Vanilla, a couple of their different boy collections. And I know you probably can't see that here, but I have cut those same circles from this patterned paper because I'm going to use the inside pieces to back the inside of each of these black circles. And then I've just chosen a selection of products from my boy kit, or my boy box, which is almost entirely Cocoa Vanilla boy themed products. I have got some little extra stars here. I've chosen some embellishments that I think will fit well with the theme of my layout. So that's my plan. Let's hop on fast forward and watch it all coming together. Okay, so I chose this mixed media patterned paper as my background, but I wanted to add a little bit more interest to it, and I'm using my stencil with some texture paste, modeling paste, white modeling paste, and I've just mixed in a little bit of this tealy blue acrylic paint, and I'm going to mix that until I get a color that I'm happy with, one that matches the teal that's in the background paper and that's in the collection that I'm using. So I'm just mixing that around, and then I have this stencil here which is just a variety of different circles, and because I was using a circle cut file I thought that worked really well with the theme. And I'm just going to stencil some of the 2 of the designs scattered around the page so that they'll just peek out from underneath my circles once I have adhered them down. And now I'm getting onto those circles. You can see I've just roughly cut out some white donut shaped circles from some plain cardstock, and I'm going to attach each of these black cut files onto a white circle just so that I've got a base to stick the centers down to. You might notice that I've got some little pins attached to the top of each of the cut files because I wanted to make sure I had them the right way up so that when I come to piecing the little pieces into each of the segments, I get them into the right place. So I'm just adding a little bit of adhesive, and I'm going to glue each of those down onto their little white donut background, and then I will pull across my cutting mat which has got all of my segmented pieces cut out, and I'm going to work on getting those glued down. Now my cut was slightly out of alignment when it went through, so some of the pieces aren't cut all the way up to the top, but that's okay because I know that once I pop them down onto the background page, I'll be able to turn them so that those pieces that don't quite fill the space are hidden by my photo, and that will hopefully make more sense as we get through this video. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that I'm pulling the same pieces to go in each of the spots, because each segmented piece is a slightly different size. So it was important to make sure that I got the right pieces for the right slots, and I'm making sure that I'm varying up. I've got 4 pattern papers, so I'm just making sure that I'm varying them up as I go through. Now, once I got this first circle was pretty easy to do, but as I got further into it, I realized that I hadn't been pulling the right pieces and putting them in the right spot. So my last circle was a bit of a hodgepodge, but you really can't tell once you look at the finished product. You really can't tell that there's patterns next to the same patterns and that some pieces don't quite fit. It's totally fine. And I threw away my usual perfectionist approach this time because I am currently on a full-time teaching prac and I have very limited time available to me. So this layout, I just went for it. I'm popping these circles down and I'm just eyeballing. Usually this is where I'd have my T-square ruler out and I'd be measuring and making sure that I've got the right distance, but this time I just eyeballed it. So I just placed them down to make sure that I was happy with the placement. And now I'm going to get stuck into creating some layers for my photo. So I've got this photo of my son, and you may not be able to see it super clearly, but he has a giant ice pack with a bandage wrapped around his head to hold the ice pack on. Probably the biggest egg on his head I have ever seen. He has been accident prone since the moment that he could move, and unfortunately he's got such a big head that it definitely cops a little bit of a beating sometimes. I just think his little body can't keep up with where his brain wants it to go. And on this particular day, I came home and I found him sitting on the couch with my husband like this because they'd been outside and little Jackie mate had gone running full pelt down the front lawn and tripped and landed on the corner of our really solid concrete letterbox. And it came up with a gigantic egg on his head. My husband was a little bit freaked out, but I assured him that it was all okay so long as the egg was pointing out and not going inside his head, and that he'd just need a little bit of ice and some Panadol and some extra love and he'd be fine. And sure enough, he was. So I wanted to document this. It's one of many photos that I have of Jack with an injury, but this one I thought was really took the cake, that huge ice pack taped to his head. And what you're seeing me doing while I am chattering away about the story is I'm creating some patterned paper layers behind my photo. I just went and cut a whole heap of coordinating pattern papers from the cut apart sheet and also from some leftover scraps that I had in this kit. And I'm not really putting too much thought or consideration into how I am layering them up, other than just to make sure that I've got a mixture of colors so I don't have two colors on top of each other. And I'm going to use this chipboard frame. I've cut it in half because there was a piece there in the top right that just looked a bit blank. So I decided to slot this chipboard frame underneath the photo just to fill that space there where the grey is. And then I realized I didn't actually need to use the chipboard frame. I could use the smaller piece and it would fit better because my photo was smaller, this is the inside bit, or the inside part from that little chipboard piece, and it works really well. But of course, once I've done that, I've got that chipboard there holding the photo up, so it was uneven. So I do pull the photo back up again in just a moment. And I have grabbed some of my handy dandy chipboard packaging that I keep nearby, or I don't throw it away. And I've just cut a small square from that, and I'm going to adhere that down in the center of the photo, just so that the photo sits flat rather than having it raised up in the top right corner where that chipboard frame is. With the chipboard backing, it sits nice and flat. And that's it for my photo layers. Lots of different sizes, lots of interest there. Now I'm going to glue my circles down. So as I said, I traced around the circles in pencil just to give me a rough idea of where they were going. And then to do that, I just eyeballed it. I'm going to add lots of wet adhesive because I have got some mixed media there, and then I am sticking it down. I realize looking back on it that it's not quite, they're not quite in the right place, but again, I don't really care this time. The effect works. It's not super noticeable, and I'm okay with that. I let my perfectionism go for just one layer. Now I am adding a piece of that chipboard, just a small piece, to the center of the photo. And the reason I'm not making it span the entire width of the photo is because I wanted to make sure that I had enough space around the edges of my photo, or my photo mats, to tuck some embellishments in if I wanted to do that. I know that lots of people like to plan out with their embellishment clusters before they actually adhere anything down. That's just not my process. I like to stick my photo down and then build my clusters around it. So I have learned through making the mistake of sticking things down too tightly and not being able to tuck in underneath, that it is better for me to just add a smaller amount of adhesive into the middle of my photo, which allows me to then access the outside edges to tuck my little embellishment clusters and layers in. And what you see me do now is get ready to adhere my title down. So I chose 4 different alpha elements, 4 different elements to create my title. 4 different elements in total to create my title. I've got the This Is, which was from one of the clear sticker sets, and I've just adhered that onto some white cardstock and trimmed it out. The You is one of the chipboard titles from from Cocoa Vanilla. Oh my goodness, my brain is just dead today. It is one of the chipboard titles from Cocoa Vanilla. The So is just some puffy alphas that I've had in my stash in that same tealy blue. And then the Buddy was one of the word stickers from one of the sticker sheets. So my title is This Is So You, Buddy, because it is definitely so you. And I'm just deciding where I'm going to place that Buddy, whether I want to overlap it or nestle it underneath, and I decide that I'm going to overlap it over the top of the U. I'll add a little bit of wet adhesive just to make sure that it sticks, and then pop that down overlapping the U. And nope, don't like it there. There it goes. Off to the right, you can see that I've got my journaling in strips already, and they are going to nestle underneath the title. But I did notice that there was a little bit of awkward blank space underneath the word So. I grabbed my notebook punch and just a spare piece of scrap paper, and just cut that using my notebook border punch and tuck that in underneath just to fill that little bit of space there. And then I've gone ahead and layered my journaling strips down underneath the title centered to the photo. So now it is time for the fun, but also the long part of my creative process, and that is creating my little embellishment clusters. So I'm just going to create 2 clusters here. Well, it's not even really 2 clusters. I think what I've done, to steal Lauren Hender's phrase, is I'm using my embellishments to cuddle, give my photo a little cuddle. So I'm just nestling them all the way around on the left hand side, on the right hand side, and then I do add some on the top right as well. And I have sped this up quite fast because I think you don't need to see me getting really tedious over how and where I place my embellishments. I thought it's better to just speed through quickly. You may notice I am using my my large roll of foam tape, which I purchased from Bunnings, and I'm layering that up to make sure that when I've got an embellishment or an element that's sitting on top of my photo, I'm layering up that dimensional adhesive, the foam, underneath the outside, so that that embellishment sits flat on the page. I really wanted to make that skull and crossbones work somewhere, but the big chipboard piece didn't make it on, but the small flare piece does. So I'm starting off with my larger embellishment pieces. I've got that sort of hand-drawn doodled scallop piece on the left-hand side and the large "What the" speech bubble on the top left, and on the right-hand side I trimmed down one of the labels, one of the large labels, and I've tucked that underneath my photo and then layered that Wild One die cut piece over the top. There was a black circle sticker which I ended up cutting in half, and I've just tucked that over underneath that top right corner, and later on you'll see that I do bring the other half of that circle down into the cluster on the left. So I've just tucked that little skull and crossbones flare piece into the embellishment cluster that's on the left of the photo. Now, I had pulled out all of these arrows from various kits, various embellishment packs that I have in my little boy collection, which is mainly cocoa vanilla stuff. And I decided that adding them in pointing in towards the four corners of my photo would be a really great way to draw the eye into the center of the photo. I don't think I've ever done anything like this before, and I really like the effect. I think it looks really cool. It's quite dramatic, but it really, yeah, and I think that drama just really highlights the topic of this layout, that, yeah, a little bit of drama with that gigantic ice pack stuck to his little head. One of those arrows was chipboard, the others were die cut papers. So the ones that were die cut paper, I have added some foam adhesive to the back of those just to lift them off the page and give a little bit of depth and dimension to each of those. And I've tried to vary the size of them and the placement a little bit, again, just for a little bit more visual interest. So I did have my date typed onto a little strip, and I had this label sticker which I knew that I was going to stick it on, but boy oh boy did I have trouble getting that adhered down the right way and the right way up. So I knew that I needed it to be at the top of that label, but for some reason I just kept sticking it down the bottom. I did it twice. And then I'm using my little tool to lift up the layer there and just tucking that between the photo and the white border. And here comes that black half circle piece again. I'm going to add a little bit of dimension to the outside of it, just again for some visual interest. And I'm going to finish off by trimming off that branding strip, and I decided I wanted to do, so I'm not matting this page, which is something unusual for me at the moment. I'm also not adding any stitching to the border of this page, which is unusual, but I did want to add a little bit of interest, so I've just cut a couple of pieces out from the edges. I'm using my distressing tool to rough all around the edges, and then I'm going to fill those little torn cuts with some extra patterned paper. Off camera, I do go ahead and add my trademark Nouveau drops to finish off the little embellishment pieces. Well, that's my finishing touch. But that is it for the layout. Of course, I have some close-up photos coming at the end. And as always, I would like to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.